Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling Company and Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. Man, welcome back to the Hard Truth Studios on this Tuesday. Thank you for the cue, Mike. I didn't realize that I had gotten muted, but I did. But we've got that taken care of. Michael DeCourcy from the Sporting News joins us, and a professional, because just with one single motion took care of a technical issue right there. Wasn't really a technical issue.
No one can mute you, man.
Oh,
we can
boy.
hear you from Pittsburgh. Let's be honest.
I hope so. Speaking of Pittsburgh, man, daggone it, the Steelers and the Cowboys, an old-fashioned tussle, though. What a classic throwback. We're talking about the classics of the NFL. I remember as a kid, I was a fan. As a matter of fact, I hated the Cowboys growing up. I hated them because my brother became a fan of the Cowboys for no reason. And I'm like going, you have no ties to Dallas. Although I was a fan of the LA Rams, which made even less sense probably. But my cousin had been a fan of the Rams. So, I kind of looked up to him when I was a kid. And so I became a fan of the LA Rams back then. But he jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon. And I was so mad because I'm like, you just picked them because they're winning. And yada, yada, yada. And so I hated them. The whole time. But, man, you think about those old Terry's, daggone it.
Bradshaw.
Why am I drawing? Terry Bradshaw led the Steelers, and that defense, Mean Joe Green, that front, just all those great names in those games. And then that's just on Pittsburgh's side, and Dallas, Roger Staubach and that crew. I mean, that was, boy, Chuck Noll. You had the Hall of Fame coaches. Everything was just, that was big time, man.
I'll tell you, it's interesting because I've watched now on several occasions. The NFL Network, a lot of times in the summer, will re-air old Super Bowls. And so I've watched the 75 season Super Bowl, which was 10, I think, down in Miami. And what's amazing is how not clean the game is, the number of turnovers that are committed, things that it would get a lot of coaches in a lot of trouble now if they happened as regularly as they did in that game. And some of the things that went on in that game as well at the end, when the Steelers had like a 4th and 9 from the Dallas 40 or right around there, and didn't trust their punter at that point in the game. They were afraid he'd get it blocked. And so they ran the ball and gave it back to the Cowboys and just said, you're not scoring on the steel curtain. You're not going anywhere. And they were right. They ended up winning the game. It was like the most audacious thing maybe a coach has ever done in a Super Bowl, eschewing a punt and running the ball on 4th and 9 from basically, like I said, close to midfield, and just knowing that the greatest defense ever assembled was going to hold up, and they did. So some of the things you see in those games, pretty amazing. The 78 season Super Bowl, which I think was 13, is one of the greatest football games ever played. It's just an amazing game. Even though the Steelers had a multiple possession lead late, Dallas came back, made it close, and it was brilliantly played, with the exception of the drop by Jackie Smith, the one gaffe in the game. Really, not a lot of misplays in that game. It was just two terrific football teams throwing their best out there, and the better one winning.
Yeah, and just boy, NFL was just a fun time then. Although you had the juggernauts, and where I've been talking here of late, how that hasn't been the case in the NFL with one exception. Those Kansas City Chiefs, man, they are not giving up the crown. And we saw them last night play against a very game New Orleans team. But boy, Kansas City is just they're I hate to say this, but they're the new England.
Well, I wouldn't put that on anybody, but
I know. They got a lot of ways
because there hasn't been a Spygate or anything like that. You know, they just throw Patrick Mahomes out there and surround him with whoever they can round up. And
is it just me, or does it? You know, Peyton Manning gets a lot of crap over the size that he has this melon the size of a melon, but I don't know what it is about Patrick Mahomes. It looks like he's wearing a helmet for Bart Simpson. It just seems like it's really tall, and I'm like, why is that?
Well, I think that's a concussion protector is what it is.
I was thinking it may be a different type of helmet.
There are different helmets that are designed to help with concussion protection. There are the ones that are padded. James Daniels from the Steelers is one player that I knew wore one, and he just, unfortunately, his helmet couldn't protect his Achilles, so he's lost for the season. But he was wearing something like that. Now, what Mahomes may be wearing, and what I know Kenny Pickett wore when he was a Steeler, was a enhanced helmet that made it more that hopefully, presumably, was designed to make it less prone to concussions. And I don't know why any player who's out there wouldn't wear one of those, given what's possible. I think that you've got to take every precaution at this point. But I think that he's an amazing player. I wrote after the last Super Bowl that I think he's already, in a lot of ways, he's already past Brady. I mean, he's had a better, whatever it is, first 7 years. It's by far better than Brady, and Brady's were phenomenal. But he's more gifted, and he's winning as much. And I think, and he's having more impact on the winning than Brady did even at that point.
Did you see the 360 he did last night in the pocket?
Yes. I mean, I
was staggering. Like, what? How do you even think to do that? Not that it was, not that it worked out, and it may have ended up costing him a TD pass. But I was like, what? All I could think about is how about the protection he's getting from that offensive line? Man, he could have danced back there, which he basically did. But when he did the 360, I'm like, wait, what? Looks like the Three Stooges out there. But but fun stuff going in the NFL. So that is fun. Yesterday, I saw that there's been a lot of chatter with the success of Indiana football. Indiana fans, of course, are already worried that Curt Cignetti is going to get poached by an SEC school, and not that they won't show interest. I'm sure that they will, but I keep saying Curt Cignetti's not going anywhere for a number of reasons. In my opinion, number one, he's 63 years old and he just got here. He brought a staff that he didn't just throw together. They've been with him for between 6 and 10 years. They brought their families. They all just moved here. They're not going to pack up and move out in a year. It's not going to happen. Number one. Number two, he just got a 1-year extension on his contract automatically because of making the bowl game in the first 6 games, no less. He gets a $250,000 raise with that. His final year will be worth $5.1 million. That's now before he gets another raise, which I'm pretty sure he probably will. A $500,000 bump for the assistants and the staff and the overall budget for football. Another $200,000 bonus after the season. 10% raise for the staff. 2 more wins, he gets another 100. 2 more Big Ten wins, another $100,000. And if they finish in the top 6 of the Big Ten, another $250,000. So he's not being left destitute by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you compare what he was getting at say, James Madison. So I think he feels more than taken care of right now. And I think he's happy. But more importantly, I do not see him wanting to go to a Florida or an Auburn. That's not a challenge. Everybody could think what he could do there. I'm like, you mean win like he's doing at Indiana?
Well, I mean,
it's never been done in Indiana.
I will say that it is a challenge. I mean, Florida's, how many promising coaches have had their careers crash on the rocks at Florida? I mean, it is a challenge. That's the whole point.
Comparing it to Indiana.
Well, no, I mean,
it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but my point is that it is a challenge. It's not like Alabama's going to open. Like if Alabama's going to open and you can see what the horizon is there, because it's already, you're already at the top of the mountain, so you can stay at the top of the mountain. Whereas Florida, you have to go and do this all over again after he just did it less than 12 months ago. I have a hard time seeing that. I think the other thing that people have to remember is that, he might go to an SEC school. Like the SEC is a more impactful league than the Big Ten is now. It's not. I mean, there may be better teams in the SEC, although I'm not willing to necessarily see that. I think that a lot of the SEC over time has been, we don't play anybody. One of our teams is really good, and they play, and they, like in Alabama with Saban or whatever, or Georgia, they've been the last couple of years. But it's not like that has extended to the rest of the league. They have had good bowl seasons. They did last year, but the thing about it is when the SEC does well in bowls, they say, we're the best league. When the SEC does poorly in bowls, and they have on many occasions, it's, we really didn't care about that. Yeah. When UCF beat Auburn, remember that? And finished undefeated, we really didn't care that much. Exactly. We didn't care.
Exactly. It's always an easy way out. But all you have to say is Vanderbilt ain't that good. That's – but I love where college football is right now, Mike. You've just been feeling this parity. Not to where I ever in a million years saw Vanderbilt beating Alabama. I will give you that. That's still a shocker to me. But that is, think how great for college football that alone is. And boy, it's so good that the people, the kids that tore those goalposts down and took them down Broadway, that were never stopped. Vanderbilt couldn't afford to pay for that kind of marketing, under no stretch of the imagination. And again, that's great for college football, period, much less for Vanderbilt. I thought that was the coolest, wildest thing. I loved it. Just watching that video, tearing those video goalposts. How the hell they managed to do it, I don't know, because I was watching them go down Broadway and they're up and over police cars that were stationary, and well, they didn't miss a beat, and but just a cool scene.
One of the interesting things that I saw after that, in the aftermath of that game, was some writer who's trying to live in 1962 or whatever, try to make that out to be a bad thing, like that it didn't matter. And I'm sorry, but it mattered, because it doesn't have to matter necessarily, because Alabama could go out and win all the rest of their games and then they get in. But that would have been the case a year ago, too. It would have been the case, quite possibly, in 1979, when it was all poll. You don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year. But here's the thing that Alabama's got on their shoulder now. They lose again to whomever, and they're not necessarily out, but they're like hanging on to the ledge there and hoping that everybody else takes as many L's as they did. So I don't buy that at all. I think that loss definitely imperiled Alabama's season. And we don't know necessarily whether they won't, maybe climb off that ledge, but they're in trouble now. And that's the way it ought to be. It ought to be earned on the field, not in some poll voter's mind. I tweeted out on Sunday. Someone in my timeline tweeted one of his pals' top 25 rankings, and I went through it, and I was curious because we talk about the Hoosiers every Tuesday, and I'm like, wait a second, there's no Hoosiers on here. I mean, what do they have to do? Well, I mean, that it just shows that how ridiculous it is to take a vote. Because if you don't have Indiana ranked at this point, you shouldn't, you're not watching, you're not paying attention, or you overlooked it. And whoever was recording the poll, or however they do it. I mean, I used to call mine in on the year that I did it, or the 2 years that I did it, and swore I'd never do it again. But I used to call mine in. And if somebody didn't say, hey, bozo, you don't have Indiana. They're 6-0. Come on, let's go. You got to have Indiana on there. And that's why this circumstance now where, look, I don't know if the Hoosiers are going to make it, but I know they can. And I know that if they accomplish certain things, they're going to have a great chance to do it. And obviously that starts with beating Nebraska on Saturday. You're not going to get in without that. You're not going to get in without defeating Michigan later on. But they can do it. I mean, that it's there for them to do. It's there for Pitt. Here, Pitt has Cal coming in on Saturday. I'm going to the game. They can do it. I'm not saying they will, but it's there for them. That's the way it should be, Jim. It should be available to everyone, depending on how they achieve in their season, not based on, well, we had you 48th in the preseason polls, Indiana, so it doesn't matter what you do, you're not making it.
Yeah, the good thing the preseason polls and the current polls have little or no bearing on the CFP poll when it comes out well into November. It will come out after Indiana plays Nebraska. So Indiana will be in prime spot if they are 7-0 at that time with a win over Nebraska to be higher than they are in the AP polls, because I do a Big Ten Power Index. I do it much differently than, say, the AP. If you lose, you get shuffled accordingly. You don't move from number 1 to number 7 if you lose to a Vanderbilt. You're going to get dropped below, at least in the Big Ten. You're going to get dropped below everybody who I think is better than you. Michigan is still ranked in the top 25. Well, they're not in front of Indiana in mine. They're not in front of some other Illinois. There are just certain teams that I think have deserved to stay up there. Illinois is another surprise of the Big Ten this year. They're a really good team. So, but Michigan's already got 4 losses on their record. You talk about a team that they're just hanging on for that upper level. I see a couple more losses on the line coming to Michigan this year. As a matter of fact, I think one comes to Indiana, but one to Ohio State. And Ohio State, of all times, is truly the linchpin of the conference this year, Mike, because they are the only, like, Indiana does not have to play Penn State or, say, USC, but they play Ohio State and in Michigan and Nebraska. I mean, it's not they don't have a hard schedule, but Oregon plays Ohio State. Penn State plays Ohio State. Ohio State is going to be the decider of who goes to the Big Ten championship, I think, if they can hang on.
Right.
They can't get 2 losses. They can't lose to Penn State and Oregon. If that happens, then they're going to get bumped down. So there are multiple teams, in my opinion, in the Big Ten that have a chance to go 11-1 or better. Ohio State, of course, Oregon, Penn State, Indiana are all 4 of those teams, because of how their records are or schedules and whatnot. Those teams all have a shot to be 11-1 or better. And we'll see how that happens. But you get that second loss, man, and that is all it will take to knock you out of probably being into the Big Ten championship.
Right. It's fascinating. And I think this is what we've wanted in college football for a long time. And between the the transfer portal and NIL and the opening up of the playoff to 12 teams and the automatic qualifiers, which should have happened years ago. With all of those factors aligned, we're seeing the most exciting college football season ever because the games are great, the consequences are significant, and the possibilities are endless. We could see who knows in the playoff come December. We don't know who's going to be there. We have a good idea that Ohio State will find a way there, but there's enough obstacles on their schedule that there's certainly no guarantee. The Buckeyes have to continue to improve or continue to perform anyway, like they have in taking apart Michigan State over the weekend. They're starting to get better and better, but there's no guarantees for anybody. And that's the way it ought to be. And that's the way it is now. And it's one of the reasons why I would be really disappointed if the SEC and the Big Ten chose to divvy up automatic playoff bids beyond the champion. This should never happen. It's not the way we should go with this. Not when you see what's happening and how glorious it is, and how great that is for the sport. And everybody prospers when the games are consequential. And they have there are perils and there are rewards. And if there are no perils, then the reward is never as great. And so I'm hopeful that the SEC and Big Ten will not go in that direction with the next round of playoff discussions.
My next question is, how many teams can the Big Ten get in to the college football playoffs? Can they get 4 teams in this year? And I know it's going to be a stretch, but at the same time, now again, this is looking at where we are now. Things are going to change. SEC, there a lot of games coming up. The Big Ten, a lot of games coming up for everyone. But it's SEC, Big Ten, SEC, Miami of Florida. I don't want to say the lone decent team. I'm really not sure how good Clemson is, but so they've got 2 teams that.
Oh, wait a second. We just went through this. Pitt's undefeated.
Oh, I forgot about Pitt. Where I hadn't gotten to them yet. Where are they? Yeah, they're number 22. And 5-0, by the way. Also getting kind of that same no respect deal. So, but I think that's going to be settled. I'm assuming they play either Miami and Clemson or one of the 2 at least. Do they still have divisions in the ACC?
They do not now. That much like the Big Ten and everybody else. Clemson will come to Pitt on November 10th. Pitt also has look, every game for Pitt is dangerous. They're not a great team, but you don't have to be great to stay afloat. You just have to be good on that Saturday. They have the Cal game will be tough for them. They have SMU on the road early November. Virginia is playing very well. They come into Pittsburgh as well as Clemson. They have to go on the road to Louisville. It's going to be really hard for them to be undefeated. But not necessarily that they would be excluded from the playoff if they played well. The terrific quarterback who transferred from Alabama is playing really well, named Eli Holstein, is playing very well for them. And we don't know. And that's my point is we don't know. That's all. I'm not predicting that they'll be there, but they're a candidate, as is Clemson, as is Louisville and SMU and Virginia, because they've all played good football to this stage. And they can all think, we just keep doing it every week, just like the Hoosiers. Every week we go out and we get it done. And look what will be there for us if we do. It's no longer as important to have the opinion of poll voters or even the opinion of the people in the room. That still matters some, a good deal. But you can take care of that by continuing to perform. And in the past, you could continue to perform and you'd have to beat everybody to even get a sniff if you're in Indiana or someone like that. You saw how long it took for Cincinnati to break through in that 2021 season. I mean, they had to.
They should have lost to Indiana at home. That was
but I mean, they had to.
Michael McFadden
they had to win every game, and everybody else had to lose multiples.
Yep. Something that as I look down through here, Iowa State is the leading, the top team for the Big 12 right now. They're at 5-0. Of course, that can change later on. Is BYU? Are they in the Big 12 now?
Yes.
It's so,
they are hard to keep track of. Yes, they are in the Big 12. Yes.
Also 5-0. So that's for Indiana fans. That's what reason I'm bringing this up is, I think Indiana. First of all, I don't know all the stinking tiebreakers in the Big Ten now, because there's going to be a need for tiebreakers, I think, when they get to the end of the season. So we'll see how that works out. But Oregon and Ohio State, big game coming up between those two.
Whew. Absolutely. Saturday night, I believe. That's a really prime game because Oregon has played exceedingly well. And as I mentioned with Ohio State, just manhandling Michigan State on Saturday, this past Saturday, they've continued to improve. Oregon has a win over Boise State, which has played really well. They've performed. And so it's an interesting game. And it's when people complain about conference expansion and all that, you also have to remember, but you get really cool games like this. They're now conference games, but we couldn't get these teams on the field often in the past. You couldn't get, although Oregon and Ohio State did play a series recently. It was hard to get teams from different parts of the country, who are at or around the same level to play one another, because the consequences for the loser were so drastic because there were no automatic bids. Well, now we get those games because they're now league games. I wrote that about SC playing at Michigan in September. We see Texas playing teams in the SEC now that make for brilliant games. Even, in the end, I was against the ACC adding Cal and Stanford, but Cal happened to come in to the the ACC as a pretty good football team. And it's made their games kind of fascinating and impactful as well. So I wasn't in favor of the Pac-12 falling apart and going away and making all the dumb mistakes they made over the last 15 years or so. But they did, and it happened, and it's really made the athletic competitions in the remaining 4 power conferences that much more compelling.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with me right now. We're talking Big Ten football, and we've got plenty more to get to. This segment was brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those of you in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. We're back with more with Mike DeCourcy right after this. Distilling Company, including Big Woods Restaurants and Quaffon Beers. You can find their great products in your area. If not, ask for Hard Truth. Their great products like their Hard Road Rye, Sweet Mash Bourbon, or the Toasted Coconut Rum. Ask for the Hard Truth. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser.
Looking for someone to cater your next corporate event, family reunion, or tailgate? To some, a garnish may be nothing more than just a decoration put last on a plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering, serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas. Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group.
In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment-free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
Welcome to Indiana Sports.
I lost myself there. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us, and plenty to talk about. We've been talking about college football for the most part as the season at the halfway point, and a lot has been talked about with Indiana with good reason. They are doing things that some they've never done, some that they haven't done in quite a few years. But regardless of all of that, the sheer fact of what is going on to me is a palpable thing that you can see and feel. It is tangible, and it's good to see them get the recognition that they deserve. But it's funny that the people who are still, we'll see, because they haven't. I said to someone yesterday, well, who have they beaten? And I'm like, well, they've beaten everyone on their schedule. I said, how's that going for Alabama? Including three conference wins. It's a tough thing to do, period, in college football. And so to do what they're doing, if people don't give that credit, I don't know what else you want.
Well, I don't understand the mentality of that either. I think it's possible that mentality could come from fans of other teams. That, because you can't filter out. You don't know what color gear they're wearing when they tweet or text or drop a message into your channel on YouTube or whatever they do. You don't know who they're really for. It doesn't make any sense to me. You enjoy this or you don't. If you don't enjoy this, then you really don't like the school, which is fine if you don't like the school. But if you are supposedly a fan of Indiana, then there's no reason not to enjoy this. You ride this train as far as it goes, and this circumstance on Saturday, a noon kickoff against a really capable team that is going to gain a ton of attention, and hopefully the weather. I haven't checked the weather, what it's going to be like in Bloomington this weekend, but hopefully the weather is as beautiful there as it was here in Pittsburgh this past weekend up until kickoff of the Cowboys-Steelers game when we had a impromptu lightning storm.
What the hell in the handbasket quick?
Whew. Anyway, what could be better than that? than a mid-October fall day where you get to see your undefeated football team play a big name, accomplished opponent with a star freshman quarterback. And if you win it, your horizons grow that much. I don't know. If you're not into that, then you either don't like football or you don't like Indiana. And it's okay not to be in either of those categories. But if you're sitting here saying, who have they beaten, then you're in one of those two categories.
Yeah, you're just not up to speed on athletics and how difficult that all that it encompasses are, especially road games and staying healthy. There's just a number of things that crosses over. Braylon Mullins, switching over to a little bit of basketball, has made a set a date for his decision, which comes up in just a couple of weeks. What is today? The 8th. So about 2 weeks from now, from tomorrow, he will be letting the folks know whether he's going to North Carolina, which they're the dark horse to me, or UConn or Indiana. Those are the two schools I think that this actually comes down to. And who would blame him for going to UConn? Hurley's he's done okay. He's done all right.
He's done all right.
He's done all right. It's not bad. Not bad. And they're thinking three-peat at UConn. They're not backing down, man. They're thinking three-peat. I don't know how possible that really is, because doing it twice was almost the impossible, but a three-peat, man.
Yeah, 3 is going to be hard because they lost pretty much the entire starting group from last season. Steph Castles was a top 10 pick, I believe. Donovan Klingland was a top 15 pick. Tristan Newton is off toward the NBA as well. Cam Spencer's off toward the NBA. So you lost an absolute truckload of talent. But here's the thing, and this is why I do admire what Dan's doing. I mean, why not? I mean, you're the first school since 2007 that can even think about it. So why not? Why not go ahead and say we're going to go gun for 3 in a row?
And not only is that not a great selling point to someone, though, that you really want, you can be the guy that helps us.
Yeah, I mean, no one's won 3 in a row since UCLA in the early 1970s, 70, 71, 72. And there have only been a couple that have won 2 in a row since then, Duke in 91 and 92, and then, Florida in 06, 07, and now UConn in these past 2 years. There's I should say a trio, not a couple, but I meant in addition to UConn. So there just haven't been that many schools that have even had a sniff of this. So I admire Dan for taking it on and saying, yeah, we're gonna take a run at this. I do think it's going to be really hard to do that. When they won it in 2023, they had a lot coming back. Klingen was going to take over for Adama Sanogo. That was obvious. They were bringing Steph Castle in. Tristan Newton was going to be back at point guard. They had a lot back. So now what they needed was a great shooting guard, and they were able to get Cam Spencer to transfer in, and he played fantastic for them. He was great. And so it all worked out. They still have some nice depth pieces, without a doubt. So there's still some talent there, but it's going to be very difficult for them to win it all. Not because the field is exceedingly great. We'll see what develops, but there's nobody out there. Alabama looks pretty dangerous. There are a lot of people that like Kansas, although I'm not sure they'll ever become a significant defensive team as they're structured. I don't know how much the talent rises to championship level at Kansas. I said that a year ago, and it proved to be right. And I still have my questions about their talent, but they'll certainly be a threat. There'll be threats from the Big Ten, maybe Purdue, maybe Indiana, maybe Rutgers with the 2 freshmen. We'll see. UCLA is going to be really good. It's going to be a really fascinating season for sure. And then I imagine that UConn will face some threats within the Big East as well.
Absolutely, man. We
Creighton.
went so long.
Look out for Creighton.
Always. We went so long in the first segment. I ran us short on the second one. I'm sorry about that, but
that's all right.
It's fun being able to talk about football so fervently.
Yes.
So
yes.
I enjoyed it. What's up next for you, quickly?
Yes, I'm working on a piece about what we mentioned earlier about the conversations about the future playoffs. So I'm going to work on a piece about that. Also, I want to make sure that I clarify. When I used the term bozo earlier, I wasn't referring to anybody else but me. I thought
he was talking about me.
No, I was talking about me back in the day when I'd call in my vote and forget somebody. So I want to make sure that everybody knows I wasn't calling anybody out on that. I was being self-deprecating. So everybody have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, kind enough to join us each and every Tuesday. So thankful for it.